Here in Las Vegas for UFC 114 weekend, also Fan Expo 2 taking place here in the fighting capital of the world, joined alongside by the voice of the Ultimate Fighting Championship for over a decade, Mike Goldberg, formerly from Chicago, did some things with Sports Channel back in the day. Mike, UFC Fan Expo 2 114, Rampage Rashad, does it get any better?
Ray, I really don't know. And first of all, it's nice to finally meet you in person. I know we've done some stuff before, and I don't think it does. I really don't. The excitement and the energy right now in the city of Las Vegas is like it's never been before. And that's actually pretty difficult to say because we've been in a lot of great situations, and I've been blessed to be on this ride for a long time. And the last few years have been better than ever, but it's something about the whole mix. It's not just the severe dislike. All right, it's hatred. It's not just that. It's not just that they're great fighters and they're former champions. It's the mix of everything and the personalities that come with us. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's that we've had to wait so long for Rampage and Rashad to finally fight. And it's because the first Fan Expo was such a success. And anytime you do it for a second time, like the UFC is doing, you know it's going to be 10 times better. So put it all together on Memorial Day weekend, and it's not that hot yet here in Vegas. Honestly, I don't think it get much better than this.
No doubt about it. Obviously, we've seen tempers are beginning to flare with Rashad and Rampage. Is this the most heated UFC rivalry in history? Dana said it is, that it surpassed Tito and Chuck and other rivalries, Tito and Ken, things along those lines. But in your opinion, is this the most heated rivalry in UFC history?
Tito and Ken was pretty good. Tito and Ken put together some good shows before the show and before the fight. And obviously Tito and Chuck is pretty legendary. But, you know, Matt Serra and Matt Hughes went back and forth a little bit. Koscheck and Daly. Probably is, though. I would agree with Dana. And I think part of that, though, Ray, is the fact that these two guys at this time in their career are pretty much still at the top of the game. Like I said, they're only a fight or two removed from being the UFC light heavyweight champion. So while Ken Shamrock and Tito Ortiz was very special, Tito was kind of working his way back in. Ken's prime may have been a few years prior. Great fighters, obviously Shamrock one of the greatest of all time, but everything is just coming at the right time in this rivalry, and they're pretty good at it. You know, Tito and Ken did some good stuff. Tito and Chuck talked, and, you know, Daly had some good lines, and Hardy was funny, but if you're really looking at pound for pound, the best trash talkers in MMA today, Rampage and Rashad are number one, and everybody else is a distant 2 and down. So I think the fact that actually, all kidding aside, they're actually pretty good at it and they're funny when they do it adds to the whole aura of this upcoming event.
Very interesting, Mike, because we are in Las Vegas, and the UFC has put together some amazing fight cards, and some of these rivalries, as you talked about, in UFC history have taken place inside this building, the MGM Grand Garden Arena, which is something we don't necessarily see all the time, but this building has a lot of history behind it, especially when it comes to the UFC.
Well, one of the biggest things that ever happened in UFC history was coming to Vegas. And I remember when Zuffa bought the company many years ago, they brought some of us former employees, if you will, or the lasting employees from SEG in the olden days out here for a dinner in Las Vegas. And I asked Lorenzo Fertitta that night, he said, any questions? And I said, will we ever be on a billboard in Las Vegas? And that's the only, at that point, you know, my mind was, you know, it was only, you know, my expectations weren't that large. I said, will we ever be on a billboard in Las Vegas? And he said, absolutely. Well, now we're on every billboard in Las Vegas. And now this truly is the home of mixed martial arts. And so the fighting capital of the world is the capital of MMA. And so you're right. I mean, coming here was a great thing. Now them kind of coming to us and being in the partnership we are, I think is wonderful for mixed martial arts. And I remember it was when Rashad was fighting at the first of the year against Thiago Silva. I went to the Black Eyed Peas concert. My favorite band, by the way, Taboo, great MMA fan, love Taboo. But I went to the concert that night, and I looked around at a Black Eyed Peas concert, and all I saw in the building were UFC banners. And I thought, wow, they're kind of playing in our house. The Black Eyed Peas are in our house tonight. And that really tells you how far the UFC has come to not only be in Vegas, but to have Vegas be its home. And there's no better home for any kind of combat sport than Las Vegas, Nevada.
No doubt about it. The UFC success can be attributed to a variety of things, but matchmaking and all amazing fights have become first and foremost. We see that fights in boxing, it takes a little while to happen. In the UFC, Dana White, Joe Silva, fight wants to happen, it's going to happen. Do you feel that's largely in part to their success?
Well, it's a credit to the fighters, first and foremost. I mean, Joe Silva's a smart guy, and he's done this for a long time, and there's nobody that rivals the ability to see and judge and match fighters like Joe Silva. He's the best. That's why he works for the biggest organization in the world. But the fact of the matter is, the best thing that can happen to Dana White or Joe Silva is a kid on the other side of that phone saying yes. Any place, anytime. And what we pride ourselves on as an organization is bringing in real fighters that want to fight. They don't care if it's 2 days notice, 2 weeks notice, 2 months notice. They don't care if it's Brock Lesnar, Brock Larson, or Brock Jones, who we don't know anything about. They're going to fight. And so while it definitely takes a mastermind like Joe to put it all together, Joe will be the first to tell you, the guy who picks up the phone on the other side of the line and wants to fight, that's the guy that we want to see. That's the fighter that people will pay to see on pay-per-view, because they're the ones who will leave it in the octagon. So I give a ton of credit. I give the majority of the credit to the fighters, because if you're willing and able and you want to do it and you want to be an MMA superstar, then you want to fight in the octagon any place, anytime against anybody.